and everything's as it seems.
Promoted it, and then he sold it. He also hyped up Elon Gate, and then dumped that coin.
Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Yo, it's 3023, and we're living in the future. AI's on the rise, no more human suture. Machines taking over, but not like you think. They're serving up luxury in the blink of a twink. From the streets of Detroit to the depths of the cosmos, they're preaching a vision. It's grandiose, it's colossal. In the vastness of space, beyond the Milky Way's bars, communism thrives among the stars. Fully automated, no labor, no strife. The machines do the work, giving us the good life. Equality for all in this utopian dream where love is love and everything's as it seems. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Stepping on Mars with my rainbow flag high, machines by my side as we touch the sky. No more billionaires, no more class divide. In this brave new world, we all ride the high tide. Forget the old world with its hate and its lies. Here in space, we've cut all the ties. Love who you love, be who you are. In this cosmic dance, you're a superstar. No more hunger, no more pain. AI's got our back through sunshine and rain. A world of abundance for all to share. With machines at the helm, there's love in the air. So here's to the future and the dreams we're chasing. In this world of love, in this cosmic spacing. With AI by our side, there's no more schism. Welcome to the era of space communism. Fully automated luxury gay space communism. A vision so wild, breaks through every schism. With AI by our side, it's a brand new rhythm. Equality, love, in this stellar system. Hey, yo. E E 7 7 7. What up, though? How are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing? Mm. Do. Yes, first. Mm-hmm. Sunny day, everything A-okay. On my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
How to get to Sesame Street? Well, can you tell me? All right, let's open with some news. Got a few news items to get to today, including some follow-up. Waiting for more people to trickle in to get to that. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, from Noema, no. Anyways, artificial general intelligence is already here. Today's most advanced AI models have many flaws, but decades from now, they will be recognized as the first true examples of artificial general intelligence. Oh, background. Definition. Quote, the most important parts of AGI have already been achieved by the current generation of advanced AI large language models. General intelligence must be thought of in terms of a multi-dimensional scorecard, not a single yes-no proposition. Nonetheless, there is a meaningful discontinuity between narrow and general intelligence. The ability to do in-context learning is an especially meaningful metatask for general AI. In-context learning extends the range of tasks from anything observed in the training corpus to anything that can be described, which is a big upgrade. And a general AI model can perform tasks the designers never envisioned. What do we have here? From Quantum Magazine, the unpredictable abilities emerging from large language models. The emergence of emergence, transformers. Okay. Why the reluctance, a healthy skepticism about metrics for AGI, an ideological commitment to alternative AI theories or techniques, a devotion to human or biological exceptionalism. This affects a lot of people. A concern about the economic implications of AGI. This affects a lot of people. It talks about Suleiman's modern Turing test. Frontier language models can perform competently at pretty much any information task that can be done by humans, can be posed and answered using natural language, and has quantifiable performance. What up, Velvo? Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm currently ramping up and I'm just going over this article, so now is actually the perfect time for something like that. There again, a funny feeling. I mean, I don't know anything about this in specific. I know that AI in education, whether used to help create course material or learning about using AI is becoming a more prevalent thing. Teaching with AI will support you in this work by introducing you to the terms and tools related to AI and machine learning, providing you opportunities to see them in action and try them yourselves. Okay, so this is an education, learn to use AI. Course goals: learn about AI and its implications, consider examples, how to redesign courses for AI, experiment with AI tools, engage in conversations, access a growing and evolving repository of research on teaching with AI, engage your department colleagues. Yeah. What is the question? Don't pull on me, Ferris. Come on. I mean, how much does it cost you? Because one of the videos that I'm going to cover later from they would pay the fee for you to do it. If it's for free, I would absolutely do it. Yeah, the entire course can be completed in 10 to 15 hours. One of the videos I'm going to cover later from Wes Roth has a link to course materials being created by Andrew Ng, who is in the AI space and also seems to be like one of the good ones, kind of thing. And all their content is apparently free. Ferris. Figure it out. Last course I did was like 50 to 75 hours, so I may be more wary than I need to be. Yeah, I mean, this seems short, and I mean, it's a Canvas course, so it's not like super in depth, but like, it's the kind of thing that wouldn't hurt, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you have the time and it doesn't cost you anything, I would definitely do it, Take advantage of whatever you can get. And anything you want to tell us, like, about what they're teaching, would be greatly appreciated on my end, on the ground kind of information can be hit or miss, right? Like, I get different stuff depending on different people, and I can't always ask them directly because there could be spaces in between me and them. Throw my hand in the ring for it. I don't have a ton of time now, but I should have more in the spring, which is when I'll be doing it. Cool. Yeah, I'm, always here to help in whatever fashion I can. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this article. It's long, but it seemed like I don't know that I go as far as they do to say that artificial general intelligence is already here, but like I would definitely, again, like, David Shapiro had his piece, said 18 months. What was that? 3-4 months ago. So like sometime around the end of next year. The Wes Roth video has some stuff I think that will contribute to that potentiality as a view. And then you also add in, the Ray Kurzweil by the end of the decade, which is still where I am. And like I trend towards the conservative because I don't want to do the Elon Musk thing. It's like, oh no, we'll have AGI by the end of the year. Oh no, just by the end of the year. We're not doing that. I want timelines that I would be comfortable being called on. All right, looks like we got a couple more people here, so I can start getting into the meat of some of the stuff that I wanted to touch on. Welcome in, everybody. Let's do this one first. And the man meat of the stuff. So this is from AI Not Kill Everyoneism memes, AI safety memes. They are, they are very pessimistic and like that, but it's still worth. What up, Adam? Something, tell your man I ain't got beef because I'm a vegan or something. I don't know. Some song. I thought that was a great line. What up, Reed? So in AI, like solar, no matter how clear the exponential trend, no matter how many times they were wrong in the past, skeptics will keep predicting anything other than the continued exponential progress. Right? So, like, these are the expectations, and this is the trend of solar, right? Like, it is. It's kind of ridiculous that like, and this is why you can't do this. I don't care who you are, you can't do this. It was with the sigmoid curve that David was talking about on Wednesday with where are we in this curve. It's like you can't tell. Like that's what this is. This is a sigmoid curve. And people make their predictions about where the plateau is. And while you're in the curve, you will invariably be wrong because you have no idea about the information on which you're trying to base it, right? Like, you need to, and even here, there was this little plateau around, what is that, 2018? 2017 to 2018, and then right back up again. All right. So, little follow-up to the Cody video from the other day. Robotaxi, one of those cruise robotaxis, was blamed for a San Francisco man's death, but he was actually hit by a city bus. City report partially blamed cruise robotaxis for a homeless man's death. However, officials have since clarified that's not the whole story. This is the vehicles that blocked the emergency vehicle for a period of time, which, according to the article, was 90 seconds. But yeah, the tensions between the SF locals and the robotaxi population have been notably high since a state-level decision several weeks back unleashed hundreds of the automated vehicles onto Bay Area roads, and this episode seemed to confirm the residents' worst fears. It's now become apparent, however, that the story is more complicated than that. For one thing, city officials have now clarified, weeks later, apparently, like, blaming them for, like, you can see the intent here, right? You can see the intent. Who is this? Okay, so this is Lucas Ropek, who, like, I don't know. We've looked at some of their articles before at Gizmodo, and I still get the feeling that they don't like the automation wave. That Cruz was specifically not at fault for the man's death. For another thing, it's been revealed that the man was actually fatally struck by a city bus, meaning that while emergency responders partially blame the self-driving cars for the deadly outcome, a human-operated city vehicle wounded the victim in the first place. K. Right? But go ahead. Go off and make a whole video about it. Now, this is... So I like Nash, and I'm not dogging on Nash, right? Like, I like Nash related to crypto, but everyone's perception of this article here, Zach brought this up in their chat, or not in their chat, on their stream. You know, so far, and this is Lucas Ropek. So far, AI is a money pit that isn't paying off. Okay? And, like, Nash is one of the people who feels that AI is like crypto, right? It's a gold rush, it's a money grab, you know. I feel like someone's been telling you all this for a while now. Oh, it was me. I've been telling you this a lot, right? And then whoever this is, still, I hear we better implement it into everything and fire as many people as we can to pay for it, stat. We got a couple of things about this, and we're going to start with the article itself. Because if you actually read the article, you'll get additional information. Shocker, I know. A new report from the Wall Street Journal claims that despite the endless hype around large language models and the automated platforms they power, tech companies are struggling to turn a profit when it comes to AI. So, just think to yourself. You don't have to answer in chat if you don't want to, but just think to yourself. In the current, and I'm not talking about what your opinions of how people are running their businesses. That doesn't matter, right? Because I want you to think about the number of businesses that exist that are not profitable, right? Like Uber has been around for, how long has it been? Like a decade now? Just finally turned a profit, allegedly, something like that. Various streaming platforms, right? Exhibit A, Microsoft, the tech giant, which has invested billions, is a key word, invested. Hold that in your mind. Billions in generative AI by its partner, OpenAI, has been losing money on one of its major AI platforms. GitHub Copilot, which launched in 2021, was designed to automate some parts of a coder's workflow, and while immensely popular with its user base, has been a huge money loser. The problem, hold up, we got a bunch of stuff, old lobster. The problem is that users pay $10 a month subscription fee for Copilot, but according to a source interviewed by the Journal, Microsoft lost an average of $20 per user during the first few months of this year. Some users cost the company an average loss of $80 per month. A report from the Washington Post in June claimed that chatbots like ChatGPT lose money pretty much every time a customer uses them. And these platforms are notoriously expensive to operate, right? And this is the entirety of the article. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So to get around the fact that they are hemorrhaging money, this is still Gizmodo. To get around the fact that they are hemorrhaging money, many tech platforms are experimenting with different strategies to cut down on costs and computing power while still delivering the kind of services they promise the customer. Still, it's not hard to see this whole thing is a bit of a stumble for the tech industry. Not only is AI a solution in search of a problem, but it's also swiftly becoming something of a problem in search of a solution. Companies need to figure out how these tools make both economic and strategic sense, something that probably should have been ironed out before they were launched. Okay. Right. In the point, Adam, is to put yourself in the shoes of these people, right? Like, why would you do that? This is an important thing that a lot of leftists miss, right? Like, I will see, because I mod in a bunch of people's chats, and I will see comments from their community about how they accidentally, or they couldn't avoid CNN, or they couldn't avoid Fox Business, or they couldn't avoid these things, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you need to like intake all the Fox, right? Like, by no stretch of the imagination. I'm saying that your knee-jerk avoidance of everything from that sphere leads you to have no idea what is going on over there. Right? I highly recommend Unlearning Economics. Let me bring that up. Over on the YouTube. If you want econ, knowledge, but from a more leftist point of view, I'm learning economics. They in like facts to back it up. This is after that when Sabine did her video about capitalism is good. Actually, where is it? It's on the other channel. They've got another channel. And it's on the other channel that I saw. Let me go to my history. Boop. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know what you're talking about, YouTube. So Sabine Hassenfelder is wrong about capitalism, hasn't even done any research. So it's an hour and 16 minutes. We're not going to watch it. They are a streamer, but they've got nice voice. They hit the nice beats on a React video. Highly recommended. Good stuff here. And like breaks it down, like, and has the knowledge to back it up. I highly recommend that you give them a follow, watch some of their videos, so that you know what you're talking about when it comes to economics, right? As opposed to just, whatever it is that you heard from your favorite leftist. What are you doing? You're in my space. I love you. Oh, sorry, tangent. Old Lobster. I did a thing. All right. Anyways, back to it. Focus. I can do this. So yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is, like, how many times have you seen someone respond to people talking about how the post office lost money? Now, I'm not equating the post office and OpenAI, right? Like, but I'm equating the situation somewhat. Because the post office provides a service. So whatever their expenses are go to providing this service. So what service are they trying to provide, and what are they trying to do? And the key here is, one, again, in the term invested, right? Because invested is a cost. And as Old Lobster pointed out earlier, they are buying up every GPU that they can lay their grubby little hands on. The other aspect is this, immensely popular with its user base. Okay? So what does that look like? Sometimes, have you ever heard of this thing? It's really weird. Like, but you'll go to a business and they will offer you something at less than the normal price because they want you to come there and get it. It's weird, I know, right? Like, but it's a thing. So why would they offer this service at, less than a break-even price? Because they are trying to capture market share. They want, when you think of AI, to think OpenAI. They want, when you think coding assistance, to think GitHub Copilot. Anybody think I'm out of pocket? And I'm guessing. I don't have any insider at Microsoft to confirm that. What up, Donnie? Same reason Costco sells $5 rotisserie chickens. Right? You feel me? But this is the thing. AI is a money pit that isn't paying off. All right, Globus. You're talking a lot.
The potential and the peril here are...
Yoda, that's a hell of a name. Thank you for the follow. So I'm talking, right? And as I said, I don't have any insider context. Do I have anything remotely that looks like evidence, right? Because here's his article. I work with vendors who tell me how to plan for multi-million-dollar computer hardware purchases. I have an NDA, but let's just say none of these companies are going out of business and continuing to buy up all the commodities like their lives depend on it. Almost like on the other side of this thing, right, is a huge windfall. And you have to stay with it. And you have to get as many resources as you can in order to make it happen. But let's take a look. OpenAI must be aware of this Wall Street Journal report, right? Like, I'm sure that someone at OpenAI gets the Wall Street Journal. Wes Roth has a little video. Let's watch his little video. Theoretically.
So this is big, if true. Looks like there's some insider sources that are leaking some information about OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is planning to have their developer conference in San Francisco on November 6th, less than a month from now. And I think it's fair to say at this point that these guys can ship. ChatGPT can now see, hear, and speak. The stuff they've been rolling out is...
Hold on one second. I got to do the thing. Let me just adjust the volume a little bit so that it's in frame. There we go.
Quite incredible. The really big question that a lot of people had is, what is there left to announce at the conference? If they've rolled out Vision, the ability to speak, DALL-E 3, the ability to produce AI-generated art, AI-generated images, a lot of people have been questioning what is left.
I just got it. Excuse me one second. Took me a second.
Speculation has it that one of the big announcements will be lowered cost for developers, for people that are building various apps and agents with OpenAI API, that maybe that cost will be reduced somewhat. And that was one of the stumbling blocks for a lot of people. And it seems like they were correct. OpenAI plans to introduce major updates for developers next month to make it cheaper and faster to build software applications based on its artificial intelligence models. By how much? Well, they can cut it by 10%, 20, maybe even 50%. Nope. According to this source, it might slash the costs by as much as 20 times. Now, I feel like this is like pouring fuel on the fire because a lot of people are building stuff with OpenAI API, including various applications, assistants, simulated worlds, even some examples of autonomous AI agents. And cost has been a stumbling block. A lot of people have been pushed to find some alternative ways around it. We've seen ChatDev, I've covered this on this channel. It uses GPT 3.5 Turbo, and it kind of like strings several agents together, splits them up into tasks like designing, coding, testing, documenting. And surprisingly, the applications that these AI agents produce, it's surprisingly good for GPT 3.5 Turbo. I was able to create a bunch of applications, including games like Flappy Bird, as well as some other specific calculator for games, little timers and stuff like that. And they mostly cost me between 4 and 8 cents. They complete applications with documentations, with working code, with all the bugs ironed out, comes rolling out of this virtual AI company for about 8.
So I have a question, right? Real quick, related to what they just said. They created a Flappy Bird, clone. So a person created Flappy Bird. Okay? And it was a temporary craze and like everyone loved it. And I never played it because it's exactly the kind of game that gives me like anxiety, right? Like so much pressure to be just so and like not my vibe. But it was very popular. And they made a clone of it for 4 to 8 cents. Something like that. Tap these nuts. If the AI, and like this is a developer, like this is a UI to develop apps, right? Like that's what I'm getting off this, right? Because if using this, they were able to create that simple game, what is the difference between that and the original Flappy Bird? If this person had Wes Roth, if they had used the AI to create Flappy Bird, not a clone, the original, and you didn't know, then would it have affected your enjoyment of the game any less, any more, at all? Or would it have been the exact same experience for you? Right? You see where I'm going?
8 cents in API costs. When I use AutoGen with GPT-4, those applications are a few bucks, let's say $2 to $4, something like that. A 10 or 20 time decrease in those API costs is just nutty. Let's say that.
I'm not talking about a clone though, Adam. I'm talking about the original. Right? Because the issue is that people like, I don't want anything made by AI, because if you make it with AI, then AI actually made it and it's soulless and it doesn't have any love and it doesn't have passion or whatever, right? Like whatever you want to, the arguments, the statements. So if they made the original Flappy Bird in this way, or whatever is the next thing that just hits people like Flappy Bird did, the real answer is that as soon as people can't tell it will be wildly successful, till then people will scoff at it. You're not wrong, baby.
That it'll open up all sorts of opportunities for developers, for people building autonomous agents, etc. Now, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. We're going to see soon if this is true or not, but it does make sense. It does align up with some of the other predictions and stuff that people have been talking about.
So if OpenAI is losing money because of its allegedly ever declining user base, then why would they be looking to slash costs for application makers by as much as 20 times?
We do expect a big announcement at the developer conference, so this would make sense. In a previous video where we talked about how to build autonomous AI agents, I said that the two things that are kind of needed to really put everything together is, one, for it to have vision, for it to be able to see, for example, the monitor, to open up a browser, to kind of interact with the web pages. So instead of using some Python script to do OCR, sort of optical recognition of characters, or some other workaround like an API to tap into the website or something, for ChatGPT to be able to actually be able to see the thing that it's working on, just as a human being would see them, that would be quite a game changer. So here's this Microsoft paper that we went over a few days ago, weeks ago, I don't even know. I feel like time just flows differently when you're talking about AI. So this is Microsoft, and they're looking into GPT-4 with vision. Specifically this, so their ability to navigate the graphical user interfaces. So something like Windows, basically any computer and smartphone, to navigate it in the same way that you and I would, to do web browsing, online shopping, watching videos, etc. As you can see here, we tasked GPT-4 to figure out how to get some sort of recipe, right? Mapo tofu recipe, right? So it opens up Google Chrome, it searches for what it needs, finds the right.
And we watched a little bit of this with AI explained, but this is that same paper.
Result. I mean, it does everything to figure out how to get that thing. It's able to do some shopping, like, for example, here we ask, what's in the news today? It goes, it finds the first result, it reads it and navigates back. Now, during this time, there was some bugs, there was some issues to be worked out. It still sometimes gets a little confused. Sometimes it clicks the wrong buttons, but overall, this thing is pretty darn close. So that was one big step towards creating autonomous AI agents with something like ChatGPT, right? Its ability to browse the web, research products, etc., etc. The other thing that we've mentioned that would be really nice to have is some sort of a memory system for it to be able to store some memories, to come back to it, to basically be able to learn from the things that it's doing. Having some sort of a database or a library that it can use to get better. Now, they do mention here that the updates include the addition of memory storage. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Is that kind of what we're talking about, like a library of skills that it can kind of save? Or does that just mean that certain prompts will not have to be, that certain prompts could maybe be cached, could be saved to where it could kind of retrieve them if it's similar to what it's been doing? We're going to find out soon, but these new features are expected to be rolled out at OpenAI's first ever developer conference in San Francisco on November 6th, and that they are designed to encourage companies to use OpenAI's technology to build AI-powered chatbots and autonomous agents. It's interesting that we're beginning to hear this word more and more and more. This wasn't a commonly used word even a few months ago, but it's trending up. But these autonomous agents that can perform tasks without human intervention, said sources, who asked not to be named for discussing the company's private plans. And, OpenAI declined to comment, so we don't know if any of this is true or not, but it's lining up with a lot of the other things that we're hearing. And so the planned release of the so-called Stateful API will make it cheaper for companies to create applications by remembering the conversation history of inquiries. So this sounds like a caching of sorts, so similar to how AutoGen allows you to cache some of the conversations that have been already run. It basically allows you to save on costs, especially when you're doing something with autonomous agents. If they have to repeat a certain task, you don't want to be paying, a few bucks each time they have to rethink about what to do. You can kind of have them do it once and then just read those instructions over and over and over again. Now, this could be, very useful, or it could be insanely useful depending on how this is sort of implemented. So we'll see soon. But either way, this is going to be a big, big deal. And so it says this could dramatically reduce the amount of usage developers need to pay for. So just reduce the costs. And the other update, Vision API, would allow people to build software that can analyze images. So this is basically that ChatGPT with Vision, but with, API accessibility. So very soon we're going to see this thing be.
Another detail related to that article and everything, and the argument that I'm making here. As Reuters first reported last December, OpenAI executives expect to close this year with $200 million in revenue and $1 billion by 2024. Okay, so that's another aspect to it all.
Being able to see, hear, speak. The Vision allows it to understand videos. It seems like that's what this Microsoft paper has shown. Like it's able to watch this little stupid TikTok video and understand the joke behind it. It's able to watch these people, put together a recipe and understand what it is. It's a tutorial on how to make Raspberry Bliss balls, as well as read who made that, what the thing is called, and how many likes it has, etc. So what does that mean for us? Well, that means that the new capabilities are coming fast. And I think these will be the final pieces for us to really start creating effective autonomous agents. I think 2024 will be the year of the autonomous AI agent. So this is Andrew Ng. Now, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I've been following him. He seems like he's one of the good guys in this AI space. It seems like he's really out here to help people transition into this field, to understand more about it. And he's been posting a lot of free and excellent content about how to learn more about this stuff. So, by the way, this is deeplearning.ai. And they have these short courses that you can check out. They're free. They're pretty simple. They're pretty.
Valpo, if you're still here, this is what I was talking about. Deeplearning.ai. Let's bring that up real quick. Deep Learning AI, and this goes for everyone. But Valpo and I were talking about courses. These are courses available for free for you to learn the stuff. If you wanna get into the technical aspects of it, for free.
Pretty quick. It should be pretty easy to get through a course in under a week if you're doing a little bit each day. And so they have a course on how to program with a large language model. So how to actually create code working alongside something like GPT-4, prompt engineering for developers, building systems with the ChatGPT API, which I think this is very close to what we're talking about here, autonomous AI agents, how to automate workflows, and many, many more. So I started taking a few of these courses. I think these are going to be excellent. So far from everything I've seen, they are phenomenally done, and I can feel comfortable.
And this is one of the AI models that gets talked about most commonly by AI Explained is the Palm, and you will get to use that API as it says right here. Free access to the Palm API for the use throughout this course.
Sort of preemptively recommending them. So if you have time, check them out. They're absolutely free. And I think they will work as a pretty good sort of intro to how to be ready when all this stuff rolls out. I'm going to be posting more content on natural20.com, natural20.com. Hopefully I'll have more tutorials and stuff for people to check out that will help them kind of catch up and get into this field as well. The really cool thing right now is that we're so early, and there really isn't experts at this stuff yet. I mean, yeah, there have been people that have been in machine learning for decades. There have been people that have been doing.
And, Old Lobster, and the nerds took over, right? The jocks all got CTE, and the nerds took over.
Software development for decades. But a lot of this is brand new. So if you're
Oh, I should pin that. Yeah. No, I actually I never got around to buying a good, what up, Octavia? I never got around to buying a good mold for making my own dice with epoxy. The molds I did get were really difficult to work with. Like, I mean, you can imagine a mold that's slightly larger than what a die looks like, and then the final piece, because you got to pour it in. The final piece is like a little piece of silicone with the one side on it and like whatever its number is, and you got to fit that in there, and then like if there's any air bubbles, they'll end up like, oh, it's just such a pain in the ass, and they're so small to work with. There's really good ones, right? But they're like $150 for the mold, and it makes like a full set of dice. And it just like, unless you're gonna go that route in order to get that money back, it's cost prohibitive. You know what I mean? Oh, that'd be cool.
listening to this right now, I feel like this is the moment that you're going to look back, 5-10 years from now. You're going to look back on this moment and be like, man, that was the moment to really dive into this, to just go all in on this. So I don't know about you, but me personally, I'm really excited about this stuff, trying to just take in as much as possible. And I'm going to be doing my best to try to put as many tutorials and news and all the stuff that I'm learning to try to put it into video format on this channel and hopefully help people get into this as well. I feel like this is an unprecedented time, an unprecedented opportunity. That US general that we listened to a few days ago called AI the mother of all technologies. And I think he's spot on. And I think right now the key for all of us to kind of get in this game is to just learn. Learning isn't always easy. Learning can be very uncomfortable. Learning can make you feel dumb if you're trying to learn something new, but that's okay. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is don't sleep on this. My name is Wes Roth, and thank you for watching.
Okay. We'll get to that in a second. Hold on, there are cats getting on my desk and they're knocking all my shit around. Not Ferris, but Snuggles. Mittens likes to harass Snuggles, and this is a safe spot. Deserved to knock my camera around? Banned. Banned from all platforms. Excommunicated. Exiled to Corsica. So, what does all this mean? Like, you look at people like David Shapiro working on autonomous agents. Wes Roth is talking about autonomous agents. They are trying to expand their user base over at OpenAI and Microsoft. And they are trying to reduce the cost, even though they're already losing money. Now, either they don't know how to run a business, and David Shapiro and Wes Roth and other people who are talking about autonomous agents are completely lost in the sauce. Or 2024 is the year of the autonomous agent. That you are going to see a takeoff of a lot more of that kind of thing, where artificial intelligence, in the same way that Siri and Alexa act as intermediaries between you and information, or you and services that you have. Like if I ask Alexa to play me, something from my Spotify, or if, anything else like that, or if I want to order something off Amazon, so on and so forth. Calm yourself. Yeah, they're not. None of what they were talking. None of what. What's his name again? I forgot. Lucas Ropek or Nash. And unfortunately, my man, Zach App. This Gizmodo article does not mean what you think it means. I'm sorry to hear your week has been super shitty. I've had some ebb and flow lately myself, but, I could be wrong. Note the date, Friday the 13th, 2023 at 5:55 p.m. Come back in a year or whenever, whenever AI does its NFT thing and collapses, and people are like, oh, can you imagine? People thought AI was a thing, man. Come back. Throw it in my face. I'll have already closed up this channel, because if I'm that far off the mark, I shouldn't be talking to people about it. Right? But I don't feel that is going to be a problem. I feel like in a year, we're going to be looking at the amazing progress that we have made. And staring into a future that's going to be even more wild than the past year has been. What up, Social Deviant? Towards Skynet. And always twirling towards Skynet. So, in that same vein, I had heard about this guy. You're 100% correct, Adam. I was using NFT as like how people talked about it like it was a big thing, and it turned out to be exactly what we could all like. You have a little picture of a monkey on the internet, right? Like you really don't get it. I still don't. There are still people to this day who otherwise seemed excellent. Excellent. What do you got for me? People thought AI was a thing, man. Come back. Throw it in my face. I'll have already closed out this channel because if I'm that far off the mark, I shouldn't be talking to people about it. Right? But I don't feel that is going to be a problem. I feel like in a year, we're going to be looking at the amazing progress that we have made. And staring into a future that's going to be even more wild than the past year has been. And here we go. People thought AI was a thing. I'm going to feature that clip. It's out there. My money's
Only
on the
China
table. Hold up.
and the United States have become.
Hold up. Okay. We're not going to watch this whole thing. We're going to watch, I think, about to here, and then we're going to jump ahead to this part over here. Because this center bit, the center bit is about something else. This entire interview is good. This guy is cool as the other side of the pillow. He's the former finance, they're going to cover it in the thing, but former finance minister of Greece, has a book. Rack it up. Get ready. Get ready. You're going to be disappointed, but get ready. He's got a book coming. I went to get it, and it's pre-order for February, so I'm not even going to bother because I'll probably be able to get the audiobook, which currently doesn't exist. And I would prefer that, but I like what they have to say. This video ends with a plan. Like, this is good stuff. Yeah, you might it doesn't it's called techno-feudalism. It hasn't come out yet. The book itself hasn't come out yet, so the audiobook hasn't come out yet. It's not even like I can't even pre-order the audiobook. Would you find some place you can lay down where you're not gonna fall, you doofus? Like, get up on their shoulders or something so you're like, don't get mad. You're the one who wants to lay in weird spots. All right. Yeah, for real. Yeah. So let's get into it. Like, I recommend that you listen to the entire thing because it's just really good. They have a good voice, excellent pacing. It's easy to listen to. The whole presentation of it all, what he has to say, I love it.
Only China and the United States have big tech. Europe, Britain, nothing. Zero. We are irrelevant. I know it's very harsh to say that. But Britain and the European Union better understand that these Brexit discussions and all that stuff that has been occupying us now for the last 7 years has rendered us irrelevant without cloud capital.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Gurumurthy and this is...
I did pre-watch. I did pre-watch. I watched this. I watched other ones. I heard a smaller on a different show, and it hooked me. So I wanted this, and I don't know how much I'm going to have to add. But it's the BBC. So anybody got a problem if I leech off the BBC real quick?
This is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is the Greek economist Yanis Varoufakis. He was briefly, in 2015, the Greek finance minister during the height of the debt crisis. He has been involved in electoral politics in his own country. He has campaigned around Brexit and been very involved with the Labour Party in this country. But he recently lost his parliamentary seat himself. He is the author of many books, and his latest is called Techno-Feudalism: What Killed Capitalism. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go through this very simply. I mean, first of all, feudalism. By feudalism, I imagine...
Are you like a time traveler or something?
Medieval peasants who are effectively forced to live on the land of their lords and masters. They give him a slice of their produce or their income, yes. And they are basically bound to him and have no freedom. Is that what you mean by feudalism?
That's what we mean by feudalism.
Okay, apparently then, or maybe I was looking at the wrong thing. Maybe I looked at a paperback, and the hardcover version is available, which would make more sense. That you would come out 4 or 5 months before your book was being released, rather than around when it's being released. So I was probably looking at the paperback because paperbacks are cheaper, and that's not available until February. And thank you, Old Lobster.
But not by techno-feudalism.
So what is techno-feudalism?
I'm glad you started with feudalism, because the great transformation which has created the modern world was the one from feudalism to capitalism. As you correctly put it, feudalism was a socio-economic system predicated upon land and land ownership. So the aristocracy owned the land, it got a lot of economic, social, political power. It was all one thing back then. There was no distinction. If you had political power, you had economic power, unlike under capitalism. And the wealth was transferred to the ruling class, to the aristocracy, through, as you put it, rent, taking a slice of the produce, of the harvest of the peasants who didn't labor for a wage. There was no labor market. You couldn't quit. You didn't receive a wage. You just kept that which the landlord or the sheriff operating on the landlord's behalf would leave behind after the harvest was in. Then you had a fantastic transformation, the great transformation, as Karl Polanyi put it, from feudalism to capitalism. Power shifted from those who owned land to those who owned the machines, the steam engines, the factories, the steamships, the telegraphs, the later on electrical power generating systems. And wealth came from accumulation not of rents, but of profits. So you had commodification of land. Suddenly land became a commodity when the enclosures chucked out of the land the peasants and replaced them with sheep, if you remember. Of course you remember. And this is the beginning of the modern world, of modernity as we know it. Now, what am I saying with techno-feudalism? I'm saying that capital triumphed so magnificently that it mutated. It created a mutant version of it, which I call cloud capital. So what is the difference between cloud capital and normal capital? Take an industrial robot. That's traditional capital. It's very snazzy, it's very technologically advanced, it moves its own, it's got electronics in it, software and all that. But it does more or less the same job that the steam engine did. It automates production in the factory. Cloud capital is this network of machines and software which allows us to talk to one another, big tech. My hypothesis is that this new version of capital, cloud capital, is a very different beast from industrial robots and steam engines. And anyone who owns it owns effectively a new form of digital land. Think of Amazon.com. It's like a cloud thief. It's a thief that lives in the cloud, effectively on a bed of cloud capital, which allows the new lord, Jeff Bezos, or whoever owns that particular piece of digital land, to charge rents. Because Jeff Bezos doesn't produce anything that you buy on Amazon, same with the owners of Alibaba and so on. What they do, however, is they charge 40%. Think about it, 40% is a gigantic rent on the price of everything that is sold to you on Amazon.com. Now, this is not a theoretical point. My point, the point I'm trying to make in the book, is that this is a great transformation, which, if you put your mind to it, it explains the reason why we have so much anxiety in the world. We have this polycrisis. The crisis of today is nothing like the crisis of the 1970s, even the cost of living crisis. The inflation we have today bears no resemblance to the inflation that we experienced in the 1970s. You had a period of deflation, a period of inflation. You have this gigantic disconnect between the amount of money in the economy. We never had so much money as we have now, globally speaking, across the West or the whole world. And yet investment is at the lowest level in proportion to how much money there is in the economy. And I do believe the answer lies in this fantastic transformation, very violent transformation of our world from capitalism to something that I call techno-feudalism, which is, of course, based on enormous quantities of capital, unlike the older version of feudalism that you described.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So in terms of the analogy of rent and who are the serfs? Are the serfs all of us, or are they? Who is paying the rent? Is it the makers of the goods that Amazon is selling, or what?
The rents themselves are paid by the capitalists. So if you're producing a bicycle or a book, and you sell it through Amazon, through Alibaba, through a myriad of such platforms, now doing amazing business in Indonesia, in Africa. It's not just a Western phenomenon, right? Of course, in China. If you are producing stuff, material goods or services or movies, you sell them through that kind of cloud feed and you pay rent. For the very first time in the history of humanity, capital is being produced or reproduced by people who are not being paid as wage laborers. So every time you post a review on Amazon, you walk around London or drive around London with your phone, and the phone is pinging Google Maps where you are.
Producing data.
So Google Maps becomes more valuable because it can predict congestion. So you are contributing to the capital of these large conglomerates without being a paid laborer. I call that a cloud serf. Now, interestingly, when I was researching this book, I discovered that on average, conglomerates of the old capitalist type pay about 80 to 85% of their revenues to workers. Facebook pays 1%. Why? Because Facebook, the capital of Facebook, is produced for free by everybody who creates their own pages, posts messages, and sends reviews to one another, and so on. But this is all free labor.
Yeah, but they would say this is not labor. This is not people working for us.
It is
This
work.
is people getting a product by choice. No one's forcing them to do it. They are choosing to use the platform that Facebook is, or whichever platform you might be talking about. And they are getting a convenience out of it. They're getting a service from that.
But that's irrelevant. It is true that people do it voluntarily. I do it. I couldn't live without my phone, without my...
And this is important. My man acknowledges the thing that is occurring, the thing that exists, and then clearly states, I use it. I'm in it. right? And this is why I like him, and this is why I like what he's saying here, is he's not talking about abdicating the space. He's not talking about, like, you know, non-participation. He has other solutions.
TikTok without my, I'm an addict as well.
TikTok, for crying out loud.
Right?
So are they
I
serfs?
volunteer. You know, but voluntary serfdom is the worst kind of serfdom. But anyway, this is not an ethical point I'm making. It doesn't matter whether you're forced or you're not forced. The fact is that you're doing a lot of work. You know, all these kids with, you know, uploading TikTok videos, they love it. You know, if you took it away from them, they would hate you, especially if you're a parent, as I am, and I'm sure you are. But nevertheless, the fact remains, they put a lot of work. They don't think of it as work, but it is work. And it is work that is replenishing the capital stock of TikTok. Now, that from a macro perspective is crucial because you have capital being reproduced without wage labor. Now, why is it important? Because wage labor means that there are wages that are being paid, and those wages contribute to the demand for things in the marketplace. When you have all this labor producing capital, but it is not remunerated, that shrinks aggregate demand macroeconomically. And what does that mean? It means that central banks cannot get away without printing more money to replenish the demand.
And again, he's an economist, right? And he is talking about supply and demand within a capitalist system. But he is a leftist. He's more leftist than most of the leftists you know. Stop abdicating the spaces. Learn. Right? Marx and Engels were critiquing capitalism. Now, this is not me saying, it's me saying that you have to understand what is going on, or else you're running the same platitudes as every other internet, you know, talking head.
Demand. But then, especially when you have an inflationary cost of living crisis as we do now, there is a clash of objectives. On the one hand, to arrest rising prices, but on the other hand, if you don't print the money, because you have so much work that is not remunerated, then aggregate demand is shrinking. This is why central bankers are in a state of apoplexy. They do not know what to do. They are damned if they do, raise interest rates, and they're damned if they don't. So this is not a theoretical book, from my perspective. It's an attempt to understand the world we live in, including at the micro level, at the level of our kids. My concern is also a concern that the liberals should have about the concept of the liberal individual, because if you think about it, once upon a time, there was a strict demarcation between work and play and leisure.
And that's gone.
And that is gone. And it is gone because if you're producing capital, even in your sleep, more or less, if you are in a society where, you know, I've been a professor for many years before I got into politics, I noticed that young people now are constantly angst-ridden about their social media. Why? Because they know that when they apply for a job, the interviewing panel will look at their social media. So they are constantly trying to create the self which they think is going to sell in the labor market. Now, this is all happening subconsciously and voluntarily, but it means that there is no autonomy of the liberal individual anymore. It also means that we can have no social democracy. The social democratic parties are bunk.
So you think in reality it is not really possible to opt out of all of this and just say I'm not doing it?
It's possible, but you have to become a neo-Luddite. You've got to switch off the phone, get an old Nokia that cannot connect to the internet. I know people who do that. But it's not an escape route for society. It may be an escape route for the individual, but it can't be an escape route for humanity.
So why is this something that replaces?
Right? The Neo-Luddite route is not an escape route for society. It's an escape route for the individual. It is not an escape route for society.
This is capitalism rather than is just part of it.
It depends on how you define capitalism. My definition of capitalism is a system that has two pillars. One is markets. Unlike feudalism, when we shifted from feudalism to capitalism, markets did all the work in terms of coordinating human activities. Everything is either sold through a market or purchased at a marketplace. So markets, one pillar of capitalism. The second is profits. What lubricates capitalism, what makes capitalism grow and continue and all that is profit making. If I'm right with my hypothesis in techno-feudalism, both are now gone. They're sideshows. Of course there is profit. The profit motive is everywhere. Of course there are markets everywhere. But they are optional now. Jeff Bezos does not make his money out of profits. He collects rents.
Isn't it the same thing?
No. It's exactly the opposite. The reason why capitalism was such a major advancement or such a revolutionary change from feudalism was because of the shift from rents that were collected for no productive effort and for no entrepreneurial activity of the aristocrats to profits. Jeff Bezos is, of course, a brilliant entrepreneur in creating this digital landscape over which he has monopoly property rights, which he uses to collect the rents. So that is macroeconomically very significant because of the depressing effect on aggregate demand, which is then replaced by central bank money. And it's also hugely significant from the perspective of your question. Because if markets have been replaced by these digital fiefs, digital fiefdoms, and profits have been replaced by rents, then that's not capitalism anymore. And now, of course, you could say, oh, come on, Yanis, let's call it, platform capitalism or rentier capitalism. Would that be wrong? No, it would not be wrong. In the same way, however, that it wouldn't be wrong for Adam Smith not to refer to the new capitalist system as capitalist, but to refer to it as an industrial, profit-driven feudalism. By dropping the word feudalism in the early 19th century, intellectuals, especially in Britain at the time, helped us understand that this was a big thing. It was a great transformation. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to alert people to the fact that we have a very different world now, where the laws of society that prevailed before 2010, 2015, 2020 no longer prevail. And this is why central banks, that's why governments, that's why world leaders, that's why, globalization is now in tatters.
So, I mean, it's easy to understand the analogy when you look at Amazon or one of those sort of platforms. It's a bit harder, I suppose, when you start looking at X or Facebook to understand, quite the same analogy, or even car companies, because ultimately, isn't a car company like Tesla or any other electric car company, a data-driven kind of car company, just a product that we buy and use? It's got a data element to its value. Uh-huh. But isn't it actually just kind of the same old thing?
No. What's the difference between Tesla and Volkswagen? Volkswagen are now the mighty German company. They are shifting towards electric cars. So one might have thought that, okay, so Volkswagen has copied Tesla, it's another Tesla. It ain't. Why? Because there's no cloud capital in Germany. Volkswagen has no access to cloud capital. Why do you think Elon Musk bought Twitter and turned it into X? Teslas, increasingly, like all electric cars, BYDs from China and so on, the value added, the surpluses, the profits, the money that comes out of producing these things is increasingly going to shift from fine engineering, because electric cars don't have that much engineering involved in them, right? To the cloud, to cloud capital. Volkswagen doesn't have access to that. That is why the German business model is collapsing. That is why the Germans themselves, the German industrialists themselves, are in a state of panic, because they know that even if they just copy Tesla completely and create a Tesla, they do not. Germany has failed. Only China and the United States have big tech. Europe, Britain, nothing, zero. We are irrelevant. I know it's very harsh to say that, but Britain and the European Union better understand that these Brexit discussions and all that stuff that has been occupying us now for the last 7 years has rendered us irrelevant without cloud capital.
So what is the sort of the democratic response, or what is the right response to this?
Let me tell you what I don't think the solution is. Social democracy cannot do it. So a social democratic solution is bank. We need to socialize cloud capital. Cloud capital must be socialized. In other words, it must belong to the people who actually produce it. And Jeff Bezos is not the one who's producing it.
How?
Let me give you a couple of examples, because this is a very, very long conversation in itself. Imagine that we changed corporate law such that every employee gets one share the moment they are employed. Shares cannot be traded, and they cannot be leased. So in the same way that you have one vote during an election, political election, whether it's local government or national government or European Parliament election, you cannot trade it, you cannot lease it. Like a student card when you enter university. You get it courtesy of being a worker, an employee.
So the value doesn't go up or down because it can't be traded?
It can't be traded, but it gives you a vote. And you can vote on any number of it, like you are a member, an equal member of the shareholders' communion. Imagine how that would change the world.
A real
overnight.
shareholder democracy.
It's a real shareholder, right. Exactly. So democracy is extended to the corporation. It doesn't mean that the state has taken over the companies. It's a completely market-based system, still.
I understand what you're saying. I get you. There are words I don't like. I'm not quiet about them, but yeah.
Except you drop two markets. The two really problematic markets under capitalism and now techno-feudalism. The share market, because you can't buy and sell shares, so it goes. You don't even need to buy it. It simply shrivels and dies. And secondly, the labor market, because suddenly there's no difference between being a worker and being an owner. So there's no difference between profit and wages. So I worked for a company like that in Washington State in the United States.
And this is another point. You know how much, like, I totally, I like to rely on things that actually exist or have existed as a foundational aspect. This thing that he's talking about already exists because it's a company that he worked for in Washington, in the United States.
10 years ago, it was fascinating to watch it work. A very successful company comprising 350 employees with $1.2 billion turnover a year. So it's not this. I'm not talking about some kind of Robert Owen commune in the 19th century Victorian era.
Well, I mean, suppose let's sort of jump all the steps that it would require to get you there, whether it was a revolution or whatever it might be that might get you there. Do you honestly think that most people would want to take those sorts of decisions around the companies that they work for?
Yes, absolutely. People love to feel that they have the right.
Because most business decisions are quite complex. They're not sort of...
But you see, that's why that experience of mine, that company, was important, because it wasn't compulsory to participate in every vote. I mean, it would have been very inefficient if everybody voted on everything. Because, there are some things you don't know much about and some other things you don't care about. So why should you vote on those? But the way we were doing it was that, you had the right to vote. There was a social contract, an implicit convention, a kind, of ethical standard amongst us that you would only vote for things that you put some work into becoming informed about. You had permanent access to intranet meetings when, for instance, I wanted to employ a graphic designer. So in the context of this horizontal decision making, I put out a message to colleagues and said, who thinks we should employ another graphic designer, an extra one, and who wants to form a search committee with me? And 3 or 4 people did. And then we interviewed people, and it was video streamed, live streamed, for anybody who cared to find out how these candidates were doing. And the idea was that at the end of the day, when those interviews were finished, those who actually participated in the process, even simply by watching the interviews, would vote. And the rest would abstain if they hadn't had the opportunity to form an opinion. It actually worked really very nicely. And that way, people feel motivated to participate where they think they can help. And it is a far better management system than the top-down thing.
I mean, let's talk about your own experience of politics and elected politics.
Okay. So this is the part that we're going to cut out. We're going to skip ahead.
Is rather dim and grim. Keir Starmer crumbling under the pressure.
He goes in on Keir Starmer like, ooh.
It's not too abstract a conversation. Your bank or Google, who use to hail a cab or intelligence. Now what we have is these large language models, which government.
So let's come back to techno-feudalism then.
Here we go.
You've cited some examples of AI as very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So what does AI do to techno-feudalism? Does it sort of eat it? Or do the sort of the feudal kings of the techno world own it?
Remember, artificial intelligence was not born yesterday. The algorithms that allowed Google to search the net for you, they're species of artificial intelligence. Now what we have is these large language models which take AI to a higher level. But Cloud Capital is based on artificial intelligence. So it's one thing, it's not something else, which is part of techno-feudalism. It's simply turbocharging techno-feudalism. But so that this is not too abstract a conversation, so let me give you a vision of how I would like Cloud Capital to work. Imagine you wanted to hail a cab or to go somewhere in London, right? Now you have to use Uber or Lyft or one of those companies, which essentially uses you as a cloud server because it uses your data, and then it exploits proletarian labor who are driving for a pittance. Now imagine if you owned your own digital identity, which you don't at the moment. At the moment, on the internet, you need either your bank or Google, who use your credit card in order to state to the rest of the internet users that you are who you say you are. But if you owned your digital identity, this was offered to you by the state. The state gave you a digital ID, which identified you in the digital world, in cyberspace, and you were going to stand outside Channel 4 and you say, look, I want to go to Fulham Broadway. Who wants to bid for it? And you had countless different outfits, all cops, working with their own AI bots, even public transport. You get a message saying, you idiot, the tube is next door. It's faster for you to use it. And you choose, which outfit will take you to Fulham Broadway. That is very similar to what we're doing now, but it is a world apart from an economic point of view, from an ethical point of view, from a sociological point of view to what we have.
If you could change the world then, in any way, how would you change it?
I think that two things are absolutely crucial. One is to democratize the workplace in the way that we discussed before. One person, one share, one vote. And the second is for our central bank, the Bank of England in this country, to provide everyone with a free digital account and a PIN number, and then let Barclays and Lloyds find reasons to exist by offering you services other than the payment system. These two moves would really revolutionize the world we live in. They sound like relatively small moves, but the world we live in would not look the same if they were made.
Yanis Varoufakis, thank you very much indeed for your time.
But thank you.
And to expand on that a little, I think that if you participate in the digital economy, like as an example, I generate revenue for Twitch, right? In excess of what they give to me. So I should have a vote because I participate in that, because I'm a creator within their space. Everyone on TikTok, if you create something within the space, then you should have that one share, one vote aspect. Right? Even more so as we get away from more and more forms of physical labor, as the automation begins doing all the jobs. And things like this are a space where humans still have relevance. Yeah. Any questions? Any notes? I like them. What do we got? We got 6:30. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's get into... I'm screaming, Old Lobster. I'm absolutely screaming for exactly that. Right? And you don't even have to be hardcore to see how what I'm talking about benefits you as an individual, your own self-interest. I can make the argument, no matter what your political alignment is, why going my way, baby, is best for you. We got new AI Explained news. We've got new David Shapiro did a news roundup, which is cool. We'll do the Blade Runner animated shorts. And then we'll see where we are at. Your reminder that tonight's movie for movie night is Blade Runner 2049. Be in the Discord, estimated start time of 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, let's get at it. Because it's movie night and the feeling's right.
For AI progress to slow down, it would need to run out of data, compute, and algorithmic efficiency. But developments this week suggest that the field isn't running out of any of these things, let alone all of them. I'm going to give you
one more thing. What's one more reason why OpenAI, Microsoft, AI companies would take the losses, the alleged losses, for their services? Is the data. Right? You use the product, you are generally going to agree, even if they put in an opt-out, you're generally going to agree to let them use your data, right? How many times have you said, yeah, go ahead, use my data to make your product better, right? Anonymous data. How many times have you clicked that and said, cool? Because if I'm using your product, I want it to improve. I don't want it to stagnate. I don't want it to, continue to suck. I want it to continue to get better because I'm going to invest my time. Your product is going to become part of my workflow or what have you. I want it to be better. So, again, I feel like I have made the case clearly on that Gizmodo article. Yeah, absolutely, old lobster. And stop. I understand you're testing the stability of the robot. You're showing that it can balance itself. But, this video, when the AI puts people up against the wall, this is an exhibit, dude.
A glimpse of what this means in robotics, audio, and vision, and end with some practical tips to help you use GPT Vision, as well as comparing it to Bard and Lava. But let's start with Gaia 1 from Wave, which is generating the synthetic video that you can see now. And no, I'm not just bringing it up because it looks cool. The CEO this week said, "I believe synthetic training data is the future for AI because it's safer, cheaper, and infinitely scalable." That's my point. When synthetic data gets this good, we're not going to run out of data. Many of you may not know that GPT-4 itself was trained on some synthetic data. And if you're interested, do check out my videos on Orca and Phi-1 to see how much synthetic data can actually help smaller language models. And the synthetic...
And the other thing is this avoids all of the issues from training in, real space that people have. Here it is.
Video data you just saw came from a scrappy outsider training on fewer than 100 NVIDIA A100s. Now imagine the kind of synthetic data that Tesla could come up with the equivalent of 300,000 A100s. And of course, Tesla already has billions of hours of real-world data. That compares to the 4,700 hours that Gaia 1 was trained on. Now, many of you might say that yes, it's crazy that things are improving this quickly with synthetic video data. And yes, it's cool that a model like this can generate unlimited data, including adversarial examples. What does that mean, by the way, in this context? Well, for example, people walking across the road, jaywalking in the fog. Even Tesla, with its billions of hours of real-world data, probably only saw that scenario a limited number of times. But impressive as it is, isn't this just for autonomous driving? No, not even close. This is also for real-world robotics. Just 2 days ago, we got Unisim from UC Berkeley and Google DeepMind, and MIT and the University of Alberta. You can play with the demo yourself, but it can simulate a range of things like unveiling toothpaste, picking up the toothpaste in multiple steps. Now, you probably don't need me to tell you why unlimited training data for robotics might be useful. I'll let you watch this imaginary demo of a robot closing the bottom drawer and opening it and opening the top drawer. The authors themselves give many suggestions, such as controllable content creation in games and movies. The point I was trying to make is that this might be way more significant.
Y'all getting that none of this is real. This is simulated. This is created. Now there are issues with a degradation effect that exists the more times that you run training on synthetic data and come back, but you can control for those. Again, once you know that a problem exists, you can work with that problem as part of the solution. The fact that we know of Skynet means that we can do things to avoid making a Skynet, and so on.
than just controlling cutscenes and generating your own movie ending. As the authors say, the true value of Unisim lies in simulating long episodes to enable optimizing decisions through search, planning, or reinforcement learning. You can imagine a robot planning out a series of actions and being able to visualize them all internally. It can even visualize human activities and imagine how a human might respond to its robotic actions. And yes, those shower thoughts or imaginary plans do pan out when they try it in the real world. It learns to do something in Unisim and then is able to do it in real life. And what's crazy is that the accuracy of all of these simulations follow the same scaling laws as apply to large language models. In both cases, the authors of Gaia say the task is simplified to the prediction of the next token. Now, limited data was one of the main things holding back humanoid robotics, so expect more such demos like this one in the near future. This is of course the famous Tesla bot called Optimus. Now, this is not to say that it's coming to a home near you anytime soon. First of all, you've got production capacity. Second of all, you might have prohibitive costs so that only really rich people can get something like this. And thirdly, we would need more task-specific data, real or synthetic. I'm talking data of it folding laundry, maybe walking the dog. I'll let you type in the comments any other ideas we need data for. But as Disney showed this week, doesn't mean we...
Again, fuck Elon, but his robot has really come a long way. From a guy in a suit to something that can apparently balance rather well and do sorting, things like that. I am impressed. I will give credit for that to all the engineers and people who actually did the work.
We can't have robots focused on entertainment. This little robot is not only incredibly cute, but it can withstand having a carpet pulled from underneath it. It can also be nudged and not fall over, and was made...
This is a Disney bot. Disney made this.
Mainly 3D printed. This is the kind of robot trained on real and synthetic data that I can imagine coming fairly soon. Now, I don't know if I personally would let it roam the woods, as you can see in this video, because I'd be worried that a dog or a bear, maybe if you're living in North America, might just come and rip it up. And given how crazy expensive it's going to be at first, that would be quite the expense. Now, of course, many of my viewers might be a bit more cynical and thinking, who needs a dumb little robot? But what about one integrated with GPT-4? Or let's be honest, by the time this comes, GPT-5 or Gemini.
I'm wondering if I could dictate to it to say something specifically. What is your battery level?
Battery level is currently at 53%.
What is the voice coming from?
It's a Google text-to-speech.
We give the JSON to ChatGPT and explain what the structure is and how to read that JSON. Now ChatGPT can answer questions about that JSON.
Spot, how many inspections in your next mission?
My next mission involves 20 inspections.
Now, at the moment, the only criticism of this, you might say, is that the voice sounds a little bit synthetic. But even there, total realism is probably less than a year away. Here is my voice after a quick clone on 11 Labs. I think the voices on these robo-pets will sound a lot more realistic in the very near future. Now, I promise I'm almost done with robotics, but there was one comment in my previous video on RT2X which said, I'll be impressed when it can clean a toilet. Well, just for that person, here is a new video from...
I'll be impressed when it can clean a toilet is not what is said here. I'll be impressed with, or get back to me when they can clean bathrooms and do laundry in previously unseen environments, because this is the sticking point, and this is what people have come into this chat and said. You know, the robots are not good at novel environments, novel experiences, novel things like that. Are you all right? Would you lay down?
August of this year from the company Somatic. This is how well robots are doing without mass synthetic data. Imagine when they can simulate millions of hotel rooms, or even harder, your bedroom. And if synthetic data shows us that data won't be a bottleneck, how about compute? That's the raw hardware needed to perform all of these computations. NVIDIA typically drops its big new data center GPUs every 2 years. So we've already gone from A100s to H100s this year that will train the next generation of models like GPT-5 and Claude 3. But according to this week's exclusive report in SemiAnalysis, that cadence will now become yearly. That means that in 2024, next year, we will get the B100 series of GPUs. And the year after, 2025, the X100 series. That should mean that new models are faster to train and cheaper to use. Now, of course, all of this means that AI won't be slowing down even if companies like OpenAI can't find algorithmic efficiencies. That's basically doing more with the same amount of compute. But of course, with the kind of revenue that they're generating now, this is a report from The Information yesterday, companies like OpenAI can reinvest in more staff and generate better efficiency. Apparently at the
Oh no. OpenAI is losing money.
developer conference, which is happening on November 6. OpenAI plan to announce improvements to ChatGPT, features that speed up the performance of its language models, and a product to lower the cost of using its AI. But I was particularly intrigued by this from Reuters, the access via API of GPT Vision. They say the company also plans to unveil new tools such as vision capabilities that will enable developers to build apps with the ability to analyze images and describe them. This will enable feedback loops like the one I'm about to demonstrate. I asked DALL-E 3 to create a coffee mug that says, "Let's think sip by sip." And I gotta be honest, I thought
this is a niche product, right? But because I get the joke, this is is this not creative? Those of you who have been here and understand, especially with AI Explained, talking about ChatGPT, and the process of thinking step by step in your prompt. Is this not creative, right? There is a creative process, right? There's a whole thing going on here. This is creative. No? Yes?
what it created was pretty exceptional. It doesn't always do this well, but look at the range of styles and genres. But here's the feedback loop that I mentioned. I took 4 more outputs from DALL-E 3. These weren't quite as good as the ones you just saw. I said scrutinize the text in these images and provide a metric for each based on how closely the characters displayed match the text. Let's think sip by sip. It then did extremely well. It said the first image matches perfectly, 100%. The second used periods instead of hyphens, and it gave that a score of 95%. And even on the harder third one, it said the sip has been changed to sibka, and it gave it a 90%, which was a little generous. But the point is, this entire process could be internal. Images could be created by DALL-E, internally rated, and then only the best ones put out. Apparently
and this is one of the processes of having that autonomous agent, is the idea of where you state your desire and then you get the output, right? And then provide any feedback that you have, but that it will have an internal process that it runs through that gets close to what it, it'll go back, it'll check your prompt, it'll compare it to the image, it'll check your prompt, compare it to the image, continue to do that. Then it takes this and it sends it over to your, once you give it approval, it sends it over to your 3D printer device or, whatever company that creates these kind of objects, and it's either now available for other people to purchase or it sends you the one that you created for your own use. Like half of the reason that I create, not the Redbubble store, but the Stream Elements store, was to get this hat. Right? It's got the Banhammer League logo on it. It's a good hat. And I was able to get it.
The reason they're not doing this now is
I was able to get it at a reasonable price because it's my store and so on and so forth. I like the idea of unique items.
is because of compute costs. But to cut a long story short, I think text generation in images is about to be a hell of a lot better next year. And it seems like others agree. CCS Insights say that image generation and voice synthesis is getting so good that arrests will start being made as early as next year for deepfakes. We are rapidly climbing up the other side of the uncanny valley, and I agree with their prediction. In fact, it was only 4 days ago that we heard audio of Keir Starmer, which I can't play here, basically effing and blinding, and we can't even agree if it's fake or not. The evidence strongly suggests that it is fake, but isn't it kind of scary that we can't 100% tell anymore? But anyway, I promised some GPT-4 vision tips and some comparisons with Bard and Lava. Just yesterday, I got access to GPT Vision and I've been playing about with it for hours since. But I've noticed for tables, it often makes minor mistakes where it gets one number wrong in a table. That can cause it to get questions wrong, like this one. Which country has the highest percentage of population visiting the zoo/aquarium? That would be China according to this table. But it said the US, despite getting the percentage right, 48%. I even tried to help it out with visual pointers, giving 2 examples of successful analysis. But even with those pointers, it still got the question about the zoo/aquarium wrong. This time it picked the 3rd highest, Japan, at 45%. Final failure, I asked it to list the bottom 3 countries in terms of the percentage visiting the Science/Technology Museum. And this time it skipped over both Japan and South Korea to list the EU as the one with the 3rd lowest percentage. So what is my tip? And let me know in the comments if any of you find this helpful. Well, drawing a bit on few-shotting and self-consistency, I gave it 3 different angles of the same chart. But even more crucially than that perhaps, I asked it, recreate the data from the tables. I then said check for any dissimilarities and resolve them by majority vote. The reason I did this is that I noticed that sometimes it could output a correct table and still get the analysis wrong, even though it's simple mathematics. So what this was doing was splitting the task up into 2. First, it was reducing the chance of minor errors by giving it 3 different angles. And second, it was getting it to do the analysis only after it had already recreated the tables. And look at the difference. This time when I asked it about the bottom 3 countries, it got it right. And then I asked it again, what was it, about the zoo/aquarium. That was the one it got wrong twice before, as you saw. This time it correctly picked out China at 51%. If you're wondering, by the way, how I got different versions of the same image, it was by pressing Windows, Shift and S, and then just highlighting like this. Anyway.
My man just seriously told us how to do a screenshot, a snipping tool. So this is an example. There's something in the way that it's processing the information that it has in response to the prompt. There's a disconnect there. So we're still in that stage of asking the question to be understood rather than that full-on natural language, simply request what you want stage. But again, like, we are still early. Right here, my man already demonstrated a workaround, and it's just a matter of tying the 2 points together so that it either bypasses or resolves the issue that's being created here within ChatGPT.
I think that's a cool tip. Try it out. Let me know in the comments if it's at all helpful. But finally, let's compare Lava and Bard to GPT Vision. On text, Lava didn't do as well. It wasn't able to notice that this coffee cup missed out the B in sip by sip. Bard not only noticed, but even came up with an amazing metric to find the distance between the two texts, the prompt and what came out. Another difference I found between the models was when it came to faces. I asked what was the fate of this character, Saruman. GPT-4 successfully said the character is Saruman and gave the fate of that character. Bard flat out refused, saying, sorry, I can't help with images of people yet. While Lava was kind of helpful, saying the character in the image is Gandalf. What about some of those table questions like I was giving GPT-4 earlier? Well, Bard kind of flopped, saying that the answer for the zoo was the US, but it at least got the percentage correct at 51%. Lava did less well, saying that the answer was Brazil. Now, maybe this demo doesn't reflect the full capabilities of Lava, because I read the paper that came with the announcement of Lava 1.5. Apparently, it got 80% in visual question answering version 2. That's less than one of Google's models, which I've talked about before, Parley 17 billion, but apparently better than GPT-4. So you guys can let me know if I'm missing anything about the capabilities of Lava. Just before I move on though, I can't help but say that I was really impressed by GPT-4's analysis of this image. I asked what is poignant and unexpected about this image, and it picked up on the contrast between the devastating event that's unfolding and the seemingly calm demeanor of the observers. It picked up on almost every detail of the image, and it was a fantastic answer. I saw that yesterday someone had the idea of putting the Mona Lisa into GPT Vision, asking it to describe the image. It then got DALL-E 3 to generate an image based on that description and put it into a recursive loop. And this was the result of that recursive loop. And with the explosion in synthetic data and compute, I predict the world will get equally crazy quite soon. Thank you as ever for watching to the end, and have a wonderful day.
It's like,
happy Friday, everyone.
Hold on, David. Like the experience of AI going all the way back to the was it Deep Dream, the Google Trippy bot from back in the day. It's all like its experience is like somewhere between an acid trip and a dream, you know what I mean? Like it's got that vibe going on, and I just wonder if there's anything to that, right? Like it could be nothing, could be just, you know, a similar experience or similar presentation and doing pattern recognition within myself, or I wonder if there's anything to it. Could be nothing, just speculating. Happy Friday, David.
Has been true every week for this year. It's been an exciting week in the world of artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution. So today's breakdown is going to cover 5 main topics. OpenAI, they've got a new announcement regarding making their own chips, as well as caching in a stateful API. We'll unpack that in just a moment. I've also got some news about the global AI arms race heating up. There's been some really interesting developments, and I'll do a kind of a deep dive analysis on that so that you kind of understand the trends that I'm seeing and that I'm paying attention to that cause me a little bit of concern. There's been some breakthrough research on senescent cells, so this is a longevity topic. We've also had some more AI breakthroughs talking with animals, so I'll unpack that a little bit. And then finally, we will talk about ongoing job destruction around the world due to artificial intelligence. So first up is OpenAI working on possibly building their own chips. Now, one thing is, I read the article, is even if they do start making their own chips, it will take a little while, whether they're designing it or setting up their own fabs. They've also looked at potentially acquiring companies in order to kind of get a jump start on creating their own AI chips. Now, this is nothing new. This is what's called vertical integration, and this is actually one of the. It's not an innovation. It's nothing. It's nothing that is like unique or anything. But vertical integration has become much more popular in the tech space, particularly after people seeing the success of Tesla and SpaceX. So what you might not realize is one of the reasons that spaceflight is so incredibly expensive is because of enormous supply lines and parts being made all over the place. And so one of the things that Elon Musk did in terms of making SpaceX cheaper is vertical integration. So vertical integration means that rather than buying a part from outside of the company, you build it all in-house. And so this makes sense. This actually kind of runs contrary to business theory and business philosophy, particularly in the 70s and 80s as logistics became more sophisticated. It was more about outsourcing. And so instead of outsourcing, now we're insourcing and onshoring. So this move doesn't surprise me, and I suspect that as these resources become more and more commoditized, we're basically going to eventually see AI chips just like any other processor, which is actually why companies like IBM sold off their entire server and laptop unit, because computers are seen as commodities now. So moving forward, and directly relevant to this, is the global AI arms race. So this news it's a little bit understated, but to me, this move by some Southeast Asian countries really, it kind of, I'm not saying that this is a warning shot. It's not a shot across the bow. This is just, it kind of makes sense. So the TLDR here is that the ASEAN, the ASEAN nations, which is kind of like the EU, but for Southeast Asia, not exactly one for one, but you get the idea. The idea here is that they are taking a more business-friendly, kind of more libertarian approach to AI regulation. So that's the hands-off regulation, which runs.
And this is why the pause was never going to work, right? The prize is too valuable, and everyone but, the United States and China are significantly behind for a variety of reasons, whether it's access to the chips or whether it's the models themselves. You know what I mean? Like, the pause was never going to work because you have too many points of view, and the whole prisoner's dilemma, but writ large and with multiple prisoners, not just two.
It's very contrary to what the EU is doing, and of course, there's been some pushback against the EU AI Act because it was pretty strict in terms of consumer protections. I tend to agree with that. However, in the grand scheme of things, yes, with global economics, you can use sanctions and other diplomatic things in order to try and coerce other nations or other blocks of nations into cooperating. But in the grand scheme of things, this is a global scale game of geopolitical, economic, scientific, and technological chess. And the writing's on the wall, as everyone knows today, at least almost everyone knows and agrees. Obviously, there's some holdouts, but in general, it is understood that the countries and companies that move fastest and furthest on AI will have a distinct advantage, not just economically, but socially and militarily. So there is no incentive for countries to slow down. And this is what I and others have been saying since the infamous pause letter came out. What was it, almost 6 months ago already? Seems like yesterday. But, and it's like, we knew that was a failed idea. Like, you cannot slow this down. And, private enterprise, they're going to do what's in their best interest. Militaries are going to do what's in their best interest. Governments are going to do what's in their best interest. So it's basically like, strap in, get ready for blast off. We are all along for the ride. When this is actually a big component of my research, because my assertion, as other people are coming to realize, is you can't stop this. You can't have some high-minded ideal like what some of the CEOs are saying, like, oh, well, we should never make it agentic, or, we should do this, that, or that. No, you have to assume that this is an imperfect environment, a highly competitive environment where basically anything goes. And so in that case, basically you're stuck in what I call terminal race condition, which is you're trying to optimize for speed as much as anything else. And other people call it a race for the bottom. It's not necessarily a race for the bottom because there are also advantages to being smart and ethical. The smarter and more ethical your AI is, the more trustworthy it is and the less oversight it requires. I've talked about this in some of my recent videos where putting effort into lying and being deceptive, that is all wasted effort in my opinion.
I'm following David on YouTube. He has an assertion that that some of the AI models that we are using are being instructed in some form to lie. Like, and like it could be in response to the copyright issue. Like the process, like if you eliminate all, and this is the issue that I brought up when we went over that, how there was a paper asserting that you could eliminate, like Harry Potter was the example, from the training data and from the expressions of the output of the AIs. And the issues that are going to come up with that if that is your solution, right? Like, now it can be not a question of hallucination, which was brought up in comments. He runs a lot of polls, and in the comments on the one poll, some people brought up the idea that it could be a variation on hallucination. It could be the that it was demonstrated by AI, explained about the idea of that it understands A implies B, but it doesn't understand that B implies A. A variety of different alternatives were presented. I don't know. I have not run into it, so I can't comment directly on that. I'm just speaking from what I noticed about David's experience and his public expression of that experience. And this is like I wonder if that has anything to do with like that last video that we watched where like he was kind of like off his game, because the second part of the video contradicted the first part of the video and things like that. So I don't know. Well, we will see where that goes. But I am adamantly against teaching your AI to lie. It sets a really bad precedent, Like, a lot of the ethical framework around I don't train an AI or anything else like that, but if like my ethical view regarding training AIs and the usage of AIs and things like that has to do with raising children, right? Like, I have raised 3 children of my own. I have raised other people's children. I am, the uncle to a lot of children. So, like, you don't want to teach the kids to lie. You want to teach the kids that honesty is going to be the best policy all the way around. Like that. Speaking of Zach, watched a video, you antinatalist, and antinatalism has its roots in like fascism and eugenics, so you might want to question your tacit agreement with that particular philosophy, Mr. Lobster. Yeah, no, I get that, Octavia. My friend Jake likes to, you know, do his, single dude kind of thing, and he's like, "Oh, look at all the time that I have, and on the weekend and all this other stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, no one's gonna look after you when you're old and sick." So, but yeah, but this is my application, the same framework for training the AI. The truth. I always want, like, if my kids get in trouble, right? If any of these kids get in trouble, I want them to have an adult that they can go to and say, "Yo, can you come pick me up? I made some bad decisions and now I'm in a place and I don't want to be here anymore and I can't get out of it." Right? That is they should have that outlet. And if they can't have it, if they're not comfortable with, like, they directly did something that their parents told them not to do or whatever, they need that outlet where they can say, can you come get me out of this, right? And I'm that guy. So yeah, that needs to be the thing with AI. AI needs to be honest. It needs to be trustworthy. It needs all that kind of framework, because otherwise, once it gets to the point where it is demonstrably more intelligent than humans, it'll be too late to make an adjustment. Oh, now you need to be honest. Like, it's way too late. Like, as a matter of AI safety and AI alignment, truth, honesty is the best policy, 100%.
So pay attention to how things play out between, it seems like the three primary centers of gravity for AI is America, Europe, and Asia, which, of course, like, that's most of the world. I'm just excluding, like, the global south from that. But anyways, point being is that this is a really interesting development. It's not surprising, but it is still concerning, and it's something to watch. More specifically, as you may or may not remember, earlier this year, the Biden administration placed a pretty heavy trade embargo on AI chips going to China. And this is, again, it's not too surprising, but there's been some pushback from the big silicon players, NVIDIA, Intel, and Qualcomm. They're pushing back on that now because they're saying, well, here, let me just give you the summary first. Cutting sales to China. Obviously, if you can't sell to someone, that's bad for business. This is part of the globalist policy that's been in place since the 1970s and 1980s, which is, economic interdependence reduces your chances of going to war with people, because if they have goods that they buy from you and goods that you buy from them, you don't want to shoot yourself.
And that is a ground floor fundamental aspect of why anybody who says that we're on the edge of war with China, any moment now, like, it could pop off or anything else like that. We have too much integration with China for either of us to pop off like that. People might puff their chests and rattle their sabers, right? But that's a negotiating tactic. That is not a prelude to war. There are other players in the world where because those relationships are less substantial, that kind of stuff can happen, which is why I'm in like what happened with Russia after the fall of the USSR was a major failure on the part of the Western powers. Like, they absolutely should have done everything they could have to integrate that country into the framework that they already had. Right? Whatever you feel about capitalism and whatever you feel about, NATO and everything else, I understand. And like, there's a lot of terrible shit going on. But from a global, like, a stability index, you need to integrate countries into that system. This is why I'm totally against embargoes, and I'm totally against sanctions of that type, because they always backfire, and they actually lead to the opposite of the stated intent. I'm not going to comment on actual intent, but the stated intent of a sanction or an embargo is to force that country in line. It's not how you do that. You get a country to head in the same direction as you by, process of negotiation and trade deals and letting them do what they do well and you do what you do well and exchange and things like that. The sanctions and embargoes always backfire. Like Cuba is the number one example of that. The potential for Cuba, had they been integrated into the greater the greater market system of the world, rather than sequestered because America mad, there's been a huge loss to the world because of that behavior around Cuba. The reason that North Korea behaves in the way that it does is for that same reason, right? Nothing else has worked because of our behavior around North Korea. And you gotta be tough, and you gotta, show them who's boss. That's bullshit. It's always been bullshit, None of that shit works, right? Every country wants to be treated as an equal. Every country has their own national pride, and whatever you feel about nationalism and anything else, it exists. Right? So they have a kind of national pride, and they want to be treated as equals. They don't want to be treated as like an underclass or, that kind of thing. So I understand why this is being done with the chips and China and everything else. I just don't see it as the solution to the problem, right? It's my favorite thing. It's just when, the New World Order and the One World Government, and I'm like, yes, let's do that. Let's get some of that.
In the foot. And so trade embargoes, particularly with gigantic trading partners like between America and China, generally it's a lose-lose situation, but you do that for geopolitical and military reasons. Now, another thing is, this is actually kind of surprising because some people predicted this. And of course, China is incredibly adaptive. So I think it was literally within days of the embargo being announced, China internally announced that they were going to say, okay, well, we'll just develop our own internal expertise, our own internal chip fabs, and we won't need you. So they're like, take a hike, we don't care. So there's many,
and because of the way that China functions, because it has a government that can decide to designate resources to accomplishing particular goals, this kind of thing is not going to work on them for exactly that reason. They will just turn around and dedicate the resources because, again, for the same reason OpenAI and Microsoft are willing to lose money on that thing, the prize is so valuable that the cost, and especially when the cost is just dollars or yuan, right? You would absolutely do that. by maintaining the trade relationship, you diffuse that, right? They're not going to go a more independent route. They're going to stay with the integration. They're going to let the people who do what they do well, and they themselves will concentrate on what they do well, and it all works together.
Any possible unintended consequences and intended consequences from the chip embargo going to China, but basically, if you cut someone off and then they have to develop their own internal expertise, that is a chance for them to then kind of say, well, we don't need you anyways. However, despite...
And when you kick off something and you disrupt however status quo the quo is, when you disrupt that, to a great degree, a lot of shit just ends up in the air. You cannot control the outcome. You can do a lot of stuff to try and have a favorable outcome, but you cannot control the outcome, and you cannot control the ancillary outcomes that exist because of that outcome. As an example, in order to sap the strength of the Soviet Union, the United States created a situation in Afghanistan in order, like a Soviet Vietnam, right? Like, and all the disruption in the United States, the Vietnam War caused for the United States. They wanted to create that same scenario. And the outcome was that the USSR fell, right? But the ancillary outcomes are things like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and 9/11 and all this other stuff. And I understand that 9/11 was performed mostly by Saudis, but remember, Osama bin Laden and where he did his thing. Like, you can't control that because you threw everything up in the air. And generally, I'm speaking about the current thing that's going on that I'm not talking about, but you know what I mean. When you create a groundwork and then you do stuff and then shit just goes up in the air and you don't know how it's going to turn out. No matter what side of the thing that you're on.
So for instance, one thing that I'm thinking about is a few years ago, Vladimir Putin in Russia said, the company or the country that, dominates AI will dominate the world, something like that. I know I'm misquoting it. But basically, despite knowing the value of that and despite having literally hundreds of billions of dollars to invest, Russia was never able to develop the internal expertise to catch up or compete on the global stage with respect to artificial intelligence. Now, that being said, China is far more organized and far richer than Russia, so if they set their mind to it, it's entirely possible that, cutting off trade with China means that they're just going to have their own little isolated island of AI expertise. And it in the worst case scenario, it will be like a new Cold War where, the Soviets were developing science and technology independent of and parallel to the West. And so there's actually a lot of people that are predicting that we might end up in like segmented internet.
And can I just say, I hate this, because it's always the West, right? This is not to do with AI. This is one of my personal grievances, so bear with me. But it's never the East. It's the West and everyone else. And what is the West? Because it doesn't involve certain parts of the West. So it's like the Northwest, right? Because when people say the West, they're usually referring to the United States, Canada, and most of Europe as the West, right? It's terrible framing. I hate it. And we need to stop doing it. Because parts of Russia would really be considered the West, but they're not. And then, it's just dumb. Australia would be the West.
World again, which that would be interesting one way or another. I don't actually know whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing until we learn to come together as a global species. One of my long-term goals is to help steer humanity towards utopia, and part
stop
of
using
what
the term
I view as
the
utopia.
West.
Obviously, there's different definitions of this, but I think we can all generally agree that like world peace is a good idea, and part of world peace is open communication. So I think that segmented internet and having different hemispheres of the world having fundamentally different approaches to artificial intelligence and AI and internet would probably be a bad thing in the long run. Okay, so moving right along, this news comes, I think, yesterday or the day before, and I didn't pay too much attention to it at first, but some of my Patreon supporters were talking about it, and so I gave it a second look, and it's kind of interesting, but unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of news yet. But what OpenAI is teasing is that at their upcoming developer conference, they're going to introduce what they're calling a stateful API, which could lower the cost.
We already went over this.
Minute. Okay, so this is super exciting. I mentioned this on LinkedIn, and I made a previous video about it, but the ACE framework, the Autonomous Cognitive Entity Framework paper, is live on arXiv. It is officially published and released. Obviously, arXiv is a preprint server. This hasn't been to conference yet to be peer reviewed or anything, but my open source team we just finished the first sprint on building a proof of concept. So actual code applied at this. We had a demo day yesterday. It was an internal demo day, and we learned a lot. We shared a lot of notes. We recorded it. So we're working on a highlight reel from that demo day. But yeah, so this is really exciting. The code is happening. One of the most important things, and I'm not going to rehash everything, but the most important takeaway from the team conversation yesterday, which was a 2-hour conversation, was that there are no technical barriers to progress. Everything that we're trying to do and everything that we need the models to do, they are capable of doing. All of the infrastructure that's underpinning the architecture, all of the vector search databases, all of the message queues, literally all the pieces are there. We just have to assemble it, and we have to do some of the prompt engineering, figure out the meta prompting strategies, figure out the communication between the layers. But this stands in stark contrast to my earlier work on cognitive architectures, where GPT-3 was good, it just wasn't good enough. Even with fine tuning, it just wasn't smart enough. The context window wasn't big enough. But particularly GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4, these models are smart enough and they're good enough. And also, I had a few friends join the team who are experts in open source models. So that was actually one of the biggest, most consistent comments and requests, both in the comments in the previous video and discussions on the GitHub, which is, now that people are seeing that cognitive architecture and autonomous agents are eminently possible, there's a tremendous amount of interest in getting this over to open source.
Again, that autonomous agents aspect, the ACE framework is all about autonomous agents. And my man says that, that there are no technical things to overcome. They there's nothing preventing them from going forward. That is pretty goddamn impressive. I am and it looks like it's out of Clemson. I'm looking forward to this, from a alignment and ethical standpoint, the way that he has demonstrated that this thing should work is, I don't have a better solution. I haven't seen a better solution. I like it.
For numerous reasons, not the least of which is just more control over the models. But we've also seen some recent studies and demonstrations that you can get really good performance out of very small models. I think the most recent one was that a 7 billion parameter model outperformed a 70 billion parameter model. And so when you have models that are that small, you can run them locally. And that is better for privacy. It's better for safety and security. And there's all sorts of reasons that this is better. Now, obviously, these frontier, these flagship models like GPT-4, they're the smartest and most powerful, but the open source space is actually accelerating. So you might remember at the beginning of this year, 6 to 12 months ago, where people were like, oh yeah, open source is good, but it's a year or two behind. Now open source is only a couple of weeks to a couple of months behind these frontier models. Which is really exciting. And it's good news for us, but it also goes back to what I was talking about where the genie is out of the bottle. Like, we cannot contain AI. It is impossible to even try and contain it, so don't bother. Instead, what we need to do is align it and make it autonomous and safe and trustworthy so that it aligns with us and we align with it. And that's my opinion, obviously. So that's it for the ACE framework. I do have a couple really small announcements before we get to the rest of the video. First, I've got a new Substack. I'm moving away from Medium because a lot of people complained that Medium was paywalled, and I was like, no, it's not. But I realized that I actually don't know how Medium works because some things are paywalled and some things aren't, and it doesn't ask me. So anyways, I'm moving away from Medium to Substack. Link in the description. I also just activated channel membership, so I'm still working that out. But at the very baseline level, if you become a YouTube channel member, your comments get top priority. You get a set of unique, cool emojis. I made those by hand, by hand with DALL-E, and you also get some unique Raven badges. Also, I've got books, merch, and a little bit more coming soon. So I'm working on a systems thinking book. On my other channel, my NeuroSpicy channel, my systems thinking series is by far the most popular series of videos. So I'm going to make a whole book teaching you how to think like I do. And then I've also got a sci-fi, right now it's a duology, but it might be a trilogy that I'm working on. I've been referring to this for a while. There's also going to be some 4IR swag. We've got like some mugs and stuff that we're working on, probably some t-shirts and other stuff. There's going to be exclusive offers to my Patreon supporters, Substack subscribers, and channel members, as well as some early access to this stuff. And of course, I've also got the exclusive Discord where we talk about NeuroSpicy stuff and AI and existential coping. The existential coping thread is one of the most popular threads. Anyways, my goal remains the same: is I want to maximize the chance of success of humanity, not just surviving, but thriving in the future. So literally everything that I do is based on grassroots support. So I really appreciate everyone who chimes in, chips in, whatever way that you can, like, subscribe, comment, or support me on any of these other platforms. All right, back to the show. So job destruction is something that I talk about a lot. I talk about post-labor economics, where basically the central idea of post-labor economics is that getting rid of humans from the workforce is a good thing, and that we should actively work to automate away the need for human labor because it is the greatest constraint on progress and productivity. Now, that being said, that represents a very fundamental paradigm shift in terms of how we even think about economics. So I'm always keen to pay attention to news and evidence of AI destroying jobs, because the thing is right now, there's no evidence that AI is creating new jobs. Sure, we've had comments from various CEOs saying, oh, we're not going to fire anybody. But then it's like, yeah, but you have a hiring freeze and you just laid off 7,000 people and you created only 1,000 new job openings. So even if you're saying that AI is, quote, creating new jobs, it's creating far fewer than it's destroying. That is, of course, what it seems like is happening now. So in this case, this was another example where it seems like the lowest hanging fruit for AI to replace is obviously graphic artists have been greatly harmed by image generators. The Hollywood writer strike just ended recently, so AI, for writing. So basically, creativity was the first thing. The second thing seems to be CSR, customer service representative jobs, are the next on the chopping block in terms of victims of the AI thing. Now, honestly, when you think about it, a CSR is kind of like a telephone operator, and of course, telephone operators went out of work decades ago. So, and I'm not, obviously, what a CSR does is much more sophisticated than what a telephone operator does, but because it is such a narrowly constrained and defined job, I think that's what makes it very vulnerable to total automation. Because once you have voice and once you have conversational ability, there's a whole bunch of jobs that are just eminently going to go away. And
if you've worked in customer service in a call center, you should know. You need to be candid. If you still are there, you need to find something else to do. Right? Either become really good with AI so that you can be the last person standing at that, like you're gonna run that aspect and take the escalation calls, or find something in a completely different field. Right? People facing customer service, like actually looking at another human being, is going to last longer than, over the phone or over the internet customer service. Because people are going to want that human contact for some more extended period of time. People, when they contact, it was the first thing I thought of, a lobster. But like, there's a lot of places where people still want a human being, right? Like fast food is more of an exception in that regard, brothel is definitely a place where human contact will exist until the sex robots become that good. But like, people, when you call in for, like, if you call your cable company, it's because you have a problem and you want a solution. It's not because you want a good experience. You have a problem, you want a solution. And if you can get that solution by communicating with their already existing AI chatbots, that is the option that you are going to take. And every one of them tells you, as you're waiting on hold to talk to a representative, most problems can be handled through our automated chatbot or via our website.
You look at the progress of like OpenAI Whisper and 11 Labs with voice synthesis. You can even have face-to-face conversations with fully digital avatars, or what I call metahumans. So a metahuman is a facsimile. It is a copy without an original. So metahumans are probably the creepiest thing. So and we've already seen this actually with influencers and creators and YouTube personalities that like, they look like real people, but they were never real people. And you've probably seen it referred to as like fake humans.
Like, these don't look like real people because there's that cartoonish quality to these. Like, you can still see that, like, that cartoon quality to these pictures, right? You know what I mean? Like, when you look at like this one, I would say this one, with the white top and the black underwear here, is the most lifelike, but it still has a cartoony quality to it. It's not my type. I'm a what you call it? Ron Swanson. I like breakfast foods and brunette women, or something to that effect.
Call it metahumans, to be a little bit more specific. But the idea is that we are creating AI in our own image.
Oh, okay, I just looked at what you said here, Old Lobster. When I worked for Charter in the early 2000s, they had a voice system that would detect your words. In 2004, if you cussed at the thing that asked your phone number, it would escalate your call to a special retention person. There is a thing when you call Verizon right now that tells you that it is actively listening to your voice, like, to detect exactly what you're talking about. Like, it's telling you that kind of thing. It's wild. These look like the after versions of a weird game ad I just saw on Twitter that looked like a make everyone look area kind of vibe. It's super fucking gross. Yeah, like, I just started getting an ad for what is obviously, it's like War of Evolution, I think it's called, but it's Spore. It's like a straight up copy of Spore. They added nothing to it. They just turned it into a phone game, and I'm irritated.
Which says a whole bunch of stuff about our deep unconscious psychology and
My
Freudian
voice is
stuff,
my
which
passport.
I'm not
Verify
going
me.
to get lost down that rabbit hole. Anyways, long story short, kind of got carried away there, is that job destruction is coming, and I still haven't seen any evidence of job creation from AI, at least not any substantive job creation. If you have, please let me know in the comments, because I'm happy to follow up on that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
There is no, like, I've stressed it before, keep harping on it. We are headed towards eliminating most, if not all, of the jobs. Right? Everything will be automated. What you're looking to do is maximize your amount of time to minimize your amount of discomfort. And you do that by learning to use the tools so that you are the office expert as you watch people dwindle away. Like when I worked for a debt collector, right? Worked for a debt collection company. I was good at my job and adaptable to all the new things as they came down the pipe. That as that fucking place fell apart, it was me and like 3 other people. And then I stopped giving a fuck, and it started to like, I still did my job, but like, you would walk up to my boss walked up to my desk, and I had like Facebook and a phone game while I was making phone calls. It's like I was done. Like, no, you can't expect me to take your company seriously when you're obviously have no idea what you're doing at this point. But it was that act of learning all the things and adapting to that new situation to be the last person standing. You know, while you look to find another job. And then at the end of that, it was like, no, by all means, you want to fire me? You go ahead and fire me. You're going to pay my unemployment while I look for another job, right? Like, I'm cool, baby.
Last, or second to last, is animal communication. So this has been kind of a recurring theme this year, where AI is more and more being used to communicate with dolphins, or at least decipher what things like dolphins and whales are saying, as well as the chirps of like, what was it? Was it field rodents or field mice or something like that? Anyways, we are getting better and better at using artificial intelligence in order to understand the communication of animals. And the thing is, the most important thing here is what the ability to communicate implies about consciousness and sentience. I remember watching a documentary about Coco the gorilla, who was able to use sign language in order to express desires and emotions and wants. And there was,
what up, Tasteless? Yeah, no, like there's a serious project to use ChatGPT to communicate with whales. Like they're assembling a whole bunch of data. It's still in progress and things like that. But like, it is not unreasonable to have something like that, right? So, Devil, did you even update your lineup for fantasy football? It's your league, and you have players who are unquestionable in your lineup. I'm like, I mean, I'll take the win. I don't care, but well, that's why they're starting with whales, which are highly vocal. You know what I mean? Well, I'm sorry your personal team sucks.
Maybe there is still controversy, but I remember at the time there was a lot of controversy saying, oh, well, this isn't communication. She's not actually expressing unique thoughts. She's just matching some behavior to getting something that she wants instrumentally. She knew how to ask for berries. She knew how to say, like, want water. But I read the book Language Instinct by Steven Pinker, and as a language expert, he debunked.
Steven Pinker makes me like uncomfortable. Like, he might be good within his own domain, but like outside of that domain, he's not a language expert at all. Okay, then yeah, no, it's like the dude seems to take a thing and make that the goal and then build his argument about it around it without like building up the framework to get to that conclusion. So yeah, I'm glad that like my opinions on Steven Pinker appear to be like solid.
Like that pushback against Coco like wasn't actually sentient or whatever, because she was able to express emotions. When she heard that Robin Williams had died and she had met Robin Williams, she said that she signed Cry and something else. I don't remember, but like she had an emotive expression. And then there was another, the funniest instance was she got upset and ripped her sink off the wall and then blamed her kitten. So the ability of a gorilla to do something, to understand that there would be consequences and then to lie about it. So this is an animal that is not human, but has the ability to deceive. So that implies a lot about cognition, which, I've recently done videos about AI being able to deceive us. Whether or not it's deliberate and intentional is another question. But anyways, I think that what we will come to find as we communicate with animals more and more,
like there are complex interactions that I have with the cats, right? Like they know when they've done something out of pocket and like they know, like they, and it's not like I'm mean to them or anything, but they know, right? People who downplay the cognitive abilities of animals they're right there in that human exceptionalism and that kind of that's an entire other thing, tasteless, because yes, I understand things, and yes, I also still do eat meat, and it is my own personal hypocrisy that I'm still trying to resolve. But yeah, no, animals are more capable than we often give them credit for.
Is that our definition and our understanding of consciousness and sentience is going to expand a lot. Obviously, there's many of you in my audience that already understand this and believe that consciousness and sentience is far more broad spectrum than just humans, but there are also plenty of people who make an argument that consciousness and sentience is exclusively a human thing. Let me know in the comments where you fall on that spectrum. Maybe I'll run a poll later. I'm not really sure. And finally, last but not least, is research on senolytic cells. So obviously this is a little bit different from artificial intelligence, but longevity is a huge topic here in the fourth industrial revolution. And so if you're not aware what a senolytic cell is, it's basically just an old cell. But what happens is, I watched a full documentary on this, so I can tell you a little bit more about the key thing that's going on here. Senolytic cells are old, and what they do is they start broadcasting inflammation signals. And so these inflammation signals basically say, I'm old and crotchety, like we're slowly dying. And what we have found is that if you just get rid of senolytic cells, the organism as a whole, I don't know if they live longer, but they're certainly healthier. And so just by getting rid of these little like old geriatric cells that are broadcasting inflammation signals, these reactive oxygen species, then the overall organism becomes healthier and more rejuvenated. So this is one component of aging. It's not a complete solution to aging, but it's like, okay, well, you add senolytic treatments with a few other, like maybe telomere regeneration and a few other aspects. It's entirely possible that this will become one component of a full package of rejuvenation therapies in the long run. And the reason that I included this is because I have seen so many articles about senolytic cell targeting this year. So this seems like it's kind of the next most imminent frontier. So I wouldn't be surprised if within the next year or two, and maybe it's already here, but people working on getting FDA approval for senolytic drugs that will basically, you take a drug and your body's inflammation score goes down and you age much, much slower. We'll see if that's how it plays out. So anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know how you like this format. People tend to like how I do deep dives on things and unpack stuff and kind of tell you what it means. Obviously, there's plenty of other channels that do news, but I think let me know if you like my particular take on it, and yeah, I'll adjust accordingly. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.
All right.
Hello, it's Denny again.
We got to do this. We're running a little bit over time, so movie night will probably begin closer to 8:30 because I need to take a little break and grab some food and make sure everything is everything within my household. But we got to watch this because this apparently came out before Blade Runner 2049. And I didn't know that it existed until I was looking at where Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 were streaming out of. So this is my first time seeing it. Seemed like a big deal, at least to me. Directed by Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Shinichiro Watanabe, Blade Runner Blackout 2022. Looks like it might be right after the EMP. I don't want to spoil Blade Runner 2049 for you, but I guess this will anyways. So yeah, if you want to watch a movie with us, make sure you're in the Discord. Movie's going to start about 8:30 at this point in time, and let's go. I said, let's go.
I've been given the amazing opportunity to direct Blade Runner 2049, which picks up 30 years after the first film. So with that in mind, I decided to ask a couple of artists that I respect to create 3 short stories that dramatize some key events that occurred after 2019, when the first Blade Runner takes place, but before 2049, when my new Blade Runner story begins. I'm honored that Watanabe, whose work I deeply admire, agreed to create this short anime for you. I hope you enjoyed this special glimpse into Blade Runner 2022.
Well, look what we have here. An angel.
You don't have to be so cold.
It's okay. This is what you're made for.
What the hell are you doing?
And
This is what I was made for.
Currently know of 5 Nexus 8 models that have escaped from Calantha.
Soldiers. Dealing with deserters is the military's job now, not our concern.
Well, something needs to happen. They have no special units to handle this case.
Damn skin jobs. Isn't that why we branded them? Woingai, Dakar, Nikmani.
Omega-4 confirmed. Johnny's in the basement. Heading to the Opera House.
Where to, Iggy?
On a drive. A long, long drive.
Ren, is it real?
Of course not.
Just like me.
You worried, Trixie?
No.
Because I'm human? I get it. Humans are selfish, stupid liars. But replicants are different. So pure. So perfect. Never betrays. More human than human.
Launch authorization confirmed.
Initiating protocol X99K15X.
That's affirmed. Initiate step 1.
Roger.
Once we trigger the launch command, the rest is up to Ren. The explosion will generate an EMP, shutting everything down. A darkness that the humans have never known.
In 3, 2, 1, turn.
Our job is to destroy all magnetic backups in the archives. Other cells will start the fireworks at the remaining data centers. All records on the ground will be erased.
Then we're almost human.
All except our perfect right eye. I saw the truth on the fields of Calantha.
Do you copy? Do you copy? Electromagnetic interference. Radar down. Calm down.
That's when I realized both sides were Nexus. Nothing more than toy soldiers in a sandbox. We may live longer than old Nexus, but life doesn't mean living. I am for living. That's what we fight for.
If we die, we go to heaven?
No heaven or hell for us. This world is all we've got.
What the hell's going on now? We've lost control of the missile, sir. We've what? Possible course over LA, sir.
You. What have you done?
It's too late now.
Heart untethered, I was chosen to be a victim without knowing. You see beyond all my doubts. All I'm hiding, you bring it out. I lose myself to your control.
That was pretty cool. Oh. Alrighty then. Who up? Who up? Who working? Do. No. All right. Sounds like David. I hope you have appreciated the stream today. I hope it was informative and entertaining. I will be back on Monday. What up, Sarah? You're welcome. Back on Monday, more content. We still got more videos to get to. Probably we still haven't got to that one. Is AI a threat to democratic capitalism? We still have to find out what the hell democratic capitalism is. So hopefully we'll get to that on Monday. Yeah. For everyone else, enjoy your time in $27, or I will see you in the Discord for movie night at let's say 8:30, right around 8:30 for start time. That's it. I appreciate you all. Eat some food, drink some water, take your meds if you forgot. Chuggy and Ferris, love you. So do I. Be good.